That's number one. You kind of reset.
Painful, tender to the touch. May also
Same shoulder length, and the other.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is our, what is it, 18, 17?
I don't track the numbers. I leave that to the guys.
All right. Well, look below the video. And you'll find out what episode this is. I think it's 16 or 17. I'm not sure. But anyways, like I said, we were going to do 20 and see how it goes. Welcome. This is Real Health with Brandi and Amir. I'm Dr. Amir Rashidian, a chiropractor. This is Brandi Rashidian, my wife, the boss of the organization, and everything else, my other half. So on Real Health, we're going to teach you how to feel better, get stronger, live longer, and feel younger.
Right. And we're going to help you go through a lot of the top health-related stories that are in the news right now, and help you figure out what they mean. Figure out what they mean to you specifically and how that impacts you and your family.
Yeah, so we welcome interaction. We would love to talk to the ones who disagree with us. We enjoy friendly debate, discussion. Let us know. You think we're full of it? Just tell us. We'd love to hear it. And if you agree with us, that's cool too. But, you know, I like it. I like it when we can have a debate and discussion. We'll learn from you. You'll learn from us.
Absolutely.
And as a whole, we're just all going to get better. I think health is a problem. I mean, we're regularly seeing people who are not happy with their doctors. They're not happy with the care they're getting. They're not happy with the way the insurance companies are treating them. They're not happy with the side effects of medications. They don't know any better. No one's really working on preventing disease. Politicians are focused on increasing access to medication, drugs, surgery, and then focusing on reducing the cost of those drugs and surgery, which, you know, it's okay if you're sick, but what if you're not? What if you're healthy and your goal is to stay healthy and not need those medications?
Right. Where is your information?
Yeah, where's your information? Who's going to teach you how to stay well and prevent the need for drugs and surgery? We're not anti-drug people. We're not anti-surgery people. We just think if you don't need it, you shouldn't take it. And let's figure out how to make sure you never need it.
Right.
So
and let's get to the root cause. You know, it's so funny, that phrase root cause. I just got a text from a good friend of mine. Hey. And, you know, she shared with me that she just went to a rheumatoid specialist, and she was, you know, blown away at how little of a conversation that doctor was willing to have with her. She was blown away that when she said, I want to get to the root cause of what's going on with me, I don't want to guess, and I don't want you to have to guess. He blew her off and wouldn't do any additional diagnostics. That's a problem for me. So of course I sent her to somebody I know is very different, and there are great doctors out there. So when we make these statements, you know, it is a blanket statement, and we do understand there are fantastic physicians out there that do have the patient's best interest at heart. Unfortunately, there are a lot of others that are driven by what insurance says and what the pharmaceutical companies want them to know and want them to do. And that I have a problem with, because we need to be focused on the patient. We need to have a relationship with our patients. We need to know who they are. We need to know what's going on with them so that we can treat them properly. If we don't do that, we're really doing a disservice to them.
So advice to you, go out of network for all your care. Even if you have health insurance, I'm not saying pay for it. There's out-of-network benefits you have, and your insurance should cover those as well. Unfortunately, there's so many times where a doctor will say, hey, this is what you need, but your insurance is going to cover this. And this isn't as good as this, but they'll pay for this. So I'm going to give you this because I'm in network, and the insurance company had me sign a contract that says I would only recommend what's approved and covered. And the reason insurance will cover this and not this is because this will cost the insurance company more money. So the insurance company wants to save money.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound ethical.
Yeah. It's a broken system. I think majority of us know that. It's broken. Anytime finances are put at the forefront of anything, there's going to be problems. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So hopefully we'll be able to share some things with you guys as we go through that will help you truly begin to make some small changes, or maybe just encourage the things you're already doing well with in your life, and just help you really be able to experience greater health. So
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know a lot of you are already
yeah.
doing great.
Yeah. So that's our really big lead in. Wow, that wasn't planned. What do you want to talk about? We have a couple cool articles.
I think that was the whole podcast right there.
That's
I
it?
think that
Okay, we're
that
done.
was all the
That's like
value.
5.5 minutes.
You can go get a snack now. We are going to review some articles. We have one on Alzheimer's. Is that right?
We do.
Take it away.
All right. Scientists discover how brain cells die in Alzheimer's. Researchers believe new findings about a form of cellular suicide gives new ideas for treating Alzheimer's. Scientists in the UK and Belgium think that they have figured out how brain cells die in Alzheimer's patients. It's been a mystery and a source of scientific debate for decades. But the team writing the journal in the journal Science connect the abnormal proteins that build up in the brain with necrosis. Thank you. A form of cellular suicide. The findings have been described as cool and exciting as they give new ideas for treating the disease. Long-awaited clues. In the it is the loss of brain cells called neurons that lead to the symptoms of Alzheimer's, including memory loss. And if you look inside the brains of people with the disease, you'd see the buildup of abnormal proteins called amyloid and tau. Scientists have not been able to join the dots between these key traits of the disease. That's part of the issue with Alzheimer's, is that I think a lot of times it really can't be diagnosed until...
And official diagnosis cannot be rendered without an actual brain biopsy,
Right.
which they can only do after death,
So
during an autopsy.
So, which is so hard because a lot of the diagnostic tools that we use, which is a combination of CTs or PET scans and blood work and all of that, they're even checking cerebral spinal fluid, thinking that there are some... if Alzheimer's is present, that it can change the CFS fluid levels. So we know, as much as we know so little, it's really hard to diagnose. So things like this are really big in our health sciences.
You know, most people I talk to say, as I get older, I'd rather lose function in my body and keep my mind. You know, so this is a pretty serious thing. You know, everybody ages.
Yeah.
There isn't a single person that doesn't age. And now you can age well.
Mm-hmm.
And as you add years to your life, technically you're getting younger.
Right.
However, you want to protect your mind.
Right.
Now they're connected, so you can't protect one without the other. You have to do both. But
Yeah.
this whole amyloid plaques and tau building up in the brain, that's a big deal. And
It
we
is
don't
a
know
big
it's
deal.
happening until it's too late. And I can't imagine, not just the sadness that comes with forgetting things and not knowing your relatives and so on, but then the pain that your relatives go through when they see you and you don't remember them.
Yeah.
That must be painful. I don't ever want to cause that kind of pain to my kids
Yeah.
or anyone else.
It's hard. You know, I spent many years as a CNA and CMA in another state, working in a locked Alzheimer's unit, and it was so hard to see the individuals that were in there. I was there at a time where it was very different. You didn't try to reorientate people to, the current time and place. So there was a little bit of fun to it because I got to go and be whoever they needed me to be at the
play
time.
along.
Yeah, it was a good role playing time. But it was a hard disease process to watch. So a lot of this, I mean, it's a great article. It talks a lot about, the abnormal buildup of the amyloids and how that leads to brain inflammation. Neurons aren't firing the way they're supposed to. When that happens, the tangles of tau appear at the brain cells and start producing a specific molecule called MEG3 that triggers death by necrosis. So these are the things that are happening behind the scenes. But here's what kind of bugs me is in this whole article, we're just saying, hey, this is exciting. This, this is some new research, but let's talk about not just new treatments, but what can we all be doing right now to reduce the chance of brain inflammation? I'm pretty sure there are things every day that we do that we unknowingly contribute.
Aluminum is one. There's aluminum in cosmetics.
Yeah.
And deodorants, or not so much deodorants, but antiperspirants.
Yeah.
And so that's one. But bigger than that, more powerful than that, is poor sleep.
Yeah.
People who don't sleep well build amyloid plaques in their brain. There's a great book called Why We Sleep by, I believe the author is Dr. Matthew Walker.
Okay.
Amazing book. There's a summary of that book with citations and information, not summary, but there's excerpts of it in my book. There's a chapter on sleep where I talk about it as well. So some of the information's in there. I think make sure you're sleeping well. And on one of our podcasts, we did talk about how to make sure you sleep properly, and we've done videos on that on our YouTube channel. So make sure you check those out.
Well, I'd also like to point out that there are foods that you could be taking in every day that will also help reduce overall inflammation, but also neurologic inflammation. So
DHA is a huge one.
DHA is huge. So for those of you who aren't sure what DHA is, that's your omega fatty acids, which you're going to
omega-3.
Yeah, which you're going to get through fish or fish oil. So those are really, really wild salmon is one. Of course, there are always issues with mercury and whatnot. So you do have to be cautious about what kinds of products you're taking. Want to make sure that it's been filtered properly so that you don't have the risk of mercury. Chia seeds also are a food that you can add into. You can add it to your shakes that you take during the day. That also has really great omega-3s. Avocados are fantastic. Now, does everybody recognize that these are all fats?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what do we hear so much? And this started years ago, but we had a huge thing on no fat, low fat, right? So I think a lot of us have this no fat, low fat, or no carb, low carb going on in our mind, and we steer away from those things. But they're so important to brain health. So
prior to 1980, obesity was not a big problem in the United States.
Yeah.
So why is it that over the past 40 years, all of a sudden obesity is a big thing?
Yeah, it's huge.
It's because they said I think it was in the early 80s, maybe 81, they announced fat is bad.
Right.
Let's cut out. And then the famous rice cake was invented.
Oh, we do like rice cakes.
We like rice cakes, but of course.
But we throw fat on it.
People put butter on it.
I put peanut butter on it.
But the amazing rice cake came out. And I remember, I was a kid, 40 years ago. I was a little kid, and I remember people saying, oh, you can eat as much as you want because there's no fat.
Right.
Just eat rice cakes all day, and there's no fat in it, but there's no protein in it either. But anyways, that's a whole different story.
And there's a part of me that I would love to see the stats, because we know the stats of heart disease, right, increased during some of these fad diets.
The minute we went fat-free, obesity and heart disease went through the roof.
Well, then I would love to see the numbers on Alzheimer's and dementia. I wonder if we also saw a spike after that. I don't know. I wish I had thought about that before we got on here. I would have tried to see if we could look that up.
Yeah.
But I would say, based on some of this information, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Right?
It's very interesting. I did recently ask because a friend of mine said, does it seem like there's more Alzheimer's now than before? And I looked it up, and it doesn't look like the cases per year. New cases per year are increasing.
Interesting.
So that's recent, though. I didn't go all the way back to 1980, but recently I feel like we're seeing more and more people with dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
But according to the data, the new cases of dementia and Alzheimer's are not increasing.
I wonder if that might have to do with how they actually can report it, though, because it cannot be really diagnosed prior to autopsy. I wonder if that hinders the reporting or how it's reported.
Yeah.
That would be one thing I would wonder. A couple other foods, just so you guys know, cacao. which is a raw form of chocolate. That also is a great, it's packed full of brain protecting antioxidants. Green leafy vegetables such as kale, spinach, broccoli, those are all great things that like kale is really high in vitamin K, which is fantastic for fighting inflammation. Broccoli is as well. And it's full of choline, which helps with neurotransmitters. So all of these foods that we were given naturally, if we put them into our daily diet, have things in there that will help to protect our brain.
Neurotransmitters are the chemicals that nerve cells, neurons use to communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm. Coffee, woohoo! Is everyone so excited about this? Coffee, actually.
Although I'm drinking water, but yes, I love coffee.
They've actually, numerous studies have been found that caffeine in moderation, no more than a couple cups of coffee a day, is linked to a reduced risk of brain inflammation related conditions such as dementia. So that's fantastic.
That's why you're so smart.
It is one of the reasons. Nuts, in particular, hazelnuts and walnuts are actually great. And that's partially because of inflammation reducing vitamin E and antioxidants in the nuts. Ginkgo biloba and ginseng, those are also
Those are herbals.
Yep, those are herbal supplements.
Ginkgo biloba increases microcirculation, so it increases blood flow to the brain. And ginseng is one that increases natural energy in cells and in the body.
But you do need to know that you do not want to go right out and begin just taking herbal supplements. Please
Absolutely
double check.
not. Yes.
With herbal supplements, there can be a lot of contraindications with pharmaceuticals or
Think of herbals like
conditions.
Drugs. In the United States,
Yeah.
the FDA doesn't regulate herbals. They should, but they don't. And so anyone can go buy any herb and take it. And then because it's also not regulated, sometimes you're buying something that says it has that herb in it,
Yeah.
but they only have a part of it. Like, for example,
Trace amounts. Yeah.
there's an herb where the root is more powerful than the leaf. So someone will buy the plant or grow the plant. They'll use the root and they'll sell the leaves and the stalk to another company, and they'll take that and package it and say it's the same herb.
Yeah.
But it's not as good. So you make sure you, like, if it's supposed to be the root, make sure the supplement you take says root on it, and
Right.
make sure it's someone like a functional medicine doctor who actually recommended it for you, and they know your health history very well.
And know also that professional grade supplements, which traditionally are not on the shelves at a local, convenience store or grocery store. Professional grade are typically tested internally and externally, which means you have a better, you have more assurance that what's on the label is actually in the bottle. That's why we're so particular about the brands that we carry and that we recommend to patients.
Yeah. Some companies will pay a third party, an
Yes.
unbiased party, to test their material and certify that, yes, this is good quality stuff.
Right. And those are always the safest. But always, if you are on any pharmaceutical or you have a disease process, please, please, please check with a professional before you take an herbal supplement. Even a lot of over-the-counter whole food supplements, you just need to know what you're doing so that you don't run into an issue where there's a shared pathway in the liver. And
I believe herbals are not supposed to be taken every day for the rest of your life.
correct.
Herbals are something you take for a period of time to resolve something, and then you should stop.
Yes.
You don't want your body to adapt to it. Certain herbs, even if they're safe or they do one thing for the first 30 days or 90 days, but then they have a different effect if you take it longer than 90 days. And you need to know those things. So
Absolutely.
it's nothing to play around with.
Believe it or not, the final recommendation for brain health to help reduce long-term brain inflammation is water. Drink a lot of water. This is something that you will be blown away at how little water you drink throughout the day if you're not tracking it.
Yeah.
I know this because 3 weeks ago, I just started tracking my water intake. I'm really working hard to get a gallon in every day, and it is tough. It is really tough to do. So I would encourage you, try to get at least a half a gallon of
We
water.
were in the same room with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Remember? And how many did he say he drinks?
I don't remember, but it was over a gallon.
He said 2 gallons.
That's a lot of water.
Two gallons a day.
I have a hard time getting one
And
in.
yeah, this is after he retired, and then we were like, "So you're retired now? Are you still doing it?" He goes, "My body still needs to perform,
Yeah.
so I'm not gonna stop. I'm still gonna eat and drink
He
water."
doesn't eat sugar. He doesn't eat refined sugar.
He still eats the way he did when he was playing. So
He inspired me. The final
that was
thing,
one of the reasons you started tracking your water.
he's one of the reasons actually I kind of started tracking everything. It
Yeah.
was my birthday weekend.
Don't get me
we
wrong.
thought-
We weren't like face to face with Tom Brady.
Right.
We were in a room, and he was on stage. So don't think we're
But
any.
we just pretend he's our
We
new
like
best
to
friend.
say we were in a room with Tom Brady.
We were only a few rows back.
Tom, if you're watching.
Hey, we miss you. There's one more thing I wanted to mention that, which I think most people will be surprised at. But believe it or not, women who breastfed or who breastfeed, we'll say, actually exhibit cognitive benefits after the age of 50. So if you are getting ready to have children, I would encourage you, if you can, breastfeed. It's not only good for the baby, it actually is shown in studies to be great for you too. So I was stumbled upon this because I was looking for another study that I had read several years ago, which talked about if you have boys versus girls, there's an additional protective hormone that's actually released. I could not put my hands on that one. But then I did find this, which was in which was an abstract. And I just think that's fantastic. We need to know that a lot of these things that are naturally, that we're programmed to do, such as breastfeeding, it's not just a benefit to our offspring. And it's not just the initial benefit of nutrients while the baby is little. There are so many things that does for both the infant
There's
and
a lot
for
of data that says what you eat, talking about the baby, affects the next 3 generations as well.
I remember hearing about that when we first got pregnant. That was a little frightening too. You're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it matters.
I think it was part of Bruce Lipton's work.
I think so.
He's the author of Biology of Belief.
Yeah.
Great book, by the way.
That's awesome.
So next article, this one hits home. It's not a new article. This came out in the New York Times about 6 months ago. But
and somebody asked us to read this.
Yeah, someone said you should read this and you should discuss it. So we said okay, and I'll just get right to it. New York Times headline is it safe to get your neck manipulated by a chiropractor? So right off the bat, looking at that title, the word that jumps out at me is manipulated.
Right.
Now chiropractors don't manipulate. I guess some do.
Some do.
But chiropractic is when you adjust. Very different than a manipulation. Now you go, okay, it's semantics. You're
it's
being
semantics to people on the outside, but
Correct.
to the profession itself,
It's
it is
not.
not semantics.
Not at all.
It's actually very important differentiation.
Correct. Manipulation to me is when you twist the head so far that a bunch of things pop. And it's non-specific
Yes.
mobilization of the spine.
Yes. It's
it's-
what medical osteopaths are trained to do, is to manipulate. Correct.
Yeah, well, because they're not based on X-ray and analysis. Right. Yeah, but I don't know. Which is funny because osteopaths manipulate the neck, chiropractors adjust, yet you don't see articles about them.
Right.
And maybe because a lot of them went away from that, and most of them don't do that anymore. So I'll read you some of the article. It says most joint manipulations aren't dangerous, but one rare complication can result in serious injury. I want to premise this. I'm going to stay very neutral and unbiased about this. I am a chiropractor, but this is for you. Most of you are not chiropractors. I think we have a couple of chiropractors who watch this. Most of you are not. And so I want you to make your own decision. I will give you what's on the article, even the parts that I don't like, and I will share data on both sides and let you decide how you want to proceed and what you feel would be safe and best for you. Going to a chiropractor has become an accepted part of medical care, with about 15% of adults in the United States visiting one, meaning a chiropractor, every year. Although critics claim the field lacks scientific validity, chiropractic treatments provide many people with pain relief, and a vast majority take place without incident. So far, not bad, right? 15% go to chiropractor. Most of them get good results.
Although
and
I
there's-
will say the scientific validity is incorrect. That's I don't think is an accurate statement.
Yeah, there is more science on the chiropractic care of the spine, more scientific research, more double-blind controlled research trials and studies than most drugs that are approved by the FDA.
Correct.
So now medicine as a whole has a lot more science behind
Right.
it. But that's medicine. But what about just one drug? The drug for blood pressure. That one drug that doesn't have as much as chiropractic has.
Right.
What about the drug for antibiotics? You know, a lot of the data came out of use. You know, we started using it. But then newer drugs that haven't been in use for a long time, not a lot of research on those, just a little bit. So, further, it says, but given the delicate nature of the spine, particularly the upper vertebrae of the neck, the consequences of complications can be devastating. One injury in particular, arterial dissection, in which blood vessels that supply blood from the heart to the brain are torn, is of high concern. In some cases, a patient may be unaware that an injury has occurred and the damage heals on its own. In others, a tear in the artery wall can cause a clot to form and result in a stroke and even death. And this article, if you want to look it up, and maybe Sean can put it in the put a link below, because the word even death is a link to where they get that information from, and I think you guys should click on that and look at it. It is unclear how common the complication is following chiropractic care. One estimate says that an arterial dissection occurs in 1 out of 1,000 neck manipulations. Another says 1 in 5.8 million. 3 of 4 authors on that study worked for Chiropractic Association. So the one where it's 1 in 5.8 million, 3 out of the 4 authors were related to chiropractic somehow.
Well, I'm not sure how much that matters, because I'm pretty sure most of the researchers that research pharmaceuticals and like the medicine that or the disease process are in that line of research.
So if the inventor of a beta blocker for blood pressure medication wrote an article, you're not going to say, oh, you can't read this article because one of the authors is the inventor of that drug, or 3 out of the 4 authors of this research article on a certain medication, 3 of them are pharmacists, so we shouldn't listen to them.
Right.
I would think that if they're chiropractors, they're experts in the field.
Right.
Maybe we should listen to that more. And maybe the article that didn't have a chiropractor as part of the authors, maybe that's the one we should throw away.
I would also
Just a
like
thought.
to point out the very large discrepancy in those 2 studies.
Yeah.
So we're talking about 1 in 1,000 versus 1 in 5, how many?
5.8 million.
5.8 million. I would say if we want to seriously write a big article, we might want to search or perform another study that would give us some kind of variation between the 2.
Again, there were links to both of those articles, but you have to think about this. If the article was published, that means it was peer-reviewed. Hopefully it was peer-reviewed. It wasn't just, but
right.
You know, the journal that published it, their reputation is on the line. And so they looked at the data, and so both got published. Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Very.
So anyways, make your own opinion. There was a doctor named Betsy Grunch who is a neurosurgeon. And she was quoted saying, if you turn your head quickly or rotate quickly, like a car accident or manual manipulation or sport, the vessel can get abruptly torqued. The most common symptoms of an arterial dissection are headaches, dizziness, and vertigo. Weakness, numbness, and paralysis on one side can occur. In a widely publicized case last year, a 28-year-old, I'm sure all of you heard about this, a 28-year-old graduate student at Georgia Southern University named Caitlin Jensen became dizzy and nauseated after a chiropractor manipulated her neck. The chiropractor called 911, and at the hospital, doctors determined Miss Jensen had tears in 4 blood vessels, resulting in a stroke and cardiac arrest. Now, there's 2 on each side. You have the vertebral artery, you have the carotid artery. The carotid artery is outside of the spine. The vertebral artery is inside the spine. So if 4 were dissected, that means on both sides the arteries tore. I don't know how that can happen. That is tremendous. That must have been one crazy manipulation to tear all 4 arteries. Wow.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm not if this guy can do that with his hands, he should be put away. It's virtually impossible to know how common causes like Caitlin Jensen's are, because there is no monitoring system to record such events. This was a professor, emeritus professor of complementary medicine at the University of Exeter in Britain. And he wrote this in an email. He said, many patients sue the chiropractor and settle out of court. Many patients, although all of that should be public record anyways, still, even the lawsuit should be recorded. Maybe the settlement is undisclosed. Many patients have a stroke and might never connect it to the manipulation. Darlene Jensen said the insurance company for the chiropractor paid the malpractice claim without disputing it. One study of over 50,000 cervical spine manipulations found that about 16 in 1,000 resulted in fainting, dizziness, and lightheadedness. A small study found that 15% of arterial dissections occurred after a sporting activity and 11% followed a chiropractic manipulation. So there's clearly more
Going
strokes.
on. Yeah.
There's more strokes happening with sports than there is with chiropractic. So I haven't seen an article that says don't play sports. And in fact, in soccer, when you head the ball, that force is way more than a chiropractic adjustment. Manipulation, different. Chiropractic adjustment is very light, very gentle. The human hands are not strong enough to do a lot of damage, especially when you're being careful. And the analysis is done properly. So Dr. Alan Hillebrandt, the chief of spine surgery at Rothman Orthopedic Institute in Philadelphia and a former president of the Cervical Spine Research Society, said that there's no smoking gun in the scientific literature tying chiropractors to arterial dissection, meaning there is no solidified evidence in any literature that says chiropractic manipulation causes the dissection in the arteries. But he added, I'm very uncomfortable with it. And he cautioned patients that neck manipulations could be dangerous. So we haven't found solidified evidence in research anywhere. So are chiropractors being unfairly blamed? Many chiropractors dispute the claim that their treatments can cause such significant harm. They point to review papers that have found no link between neck manipulations and arterial tears. And you know what? I'm familiar with these. I've seen a lot of them, but I didn't want to bring them to this table just because I didn't want you to think I'm being biased. I want you to hear the whole thing and both sides of it. And research showing that people who visited a primary care doctor were just as likely to have a stroke in the weeks following the appointment as people who saw a chiropractor. So there was no difference between people who had a stroke within a few weeks of seeing a medical doctor versus the people who had a stroke within a few weeks of seeing a chiropractor. Instead, they say a visit to a chiropractor is more often the result of an arterial dissection, not the cause of it.
So what that means is the symptoms that someone is having,
correct,
after an arterial dissection, right, caused them, those symptoms led that patient to set up an appointment at a chiropractor's office.
When there's an artery issue in the neck, you're going to have tightness and stiffness in your neck. You're going to have trouble turning your head. You're going to have some neck pain, discomfort, and headaches. And a lot of people, when they have stiffness in their neck, they go to the chiropractor.
Right.
So a lot of these people, they're claiming, I'm not going to say they're right. They're claiming that a lot of people who have arterial dissection were already having that dissection from something like an aneurysm or something else prior to the chiropractic visit. And I guess the chiropractor didn't do enough analysis to see, hey, this is wrong. Like, are they checking blood pressure? Are they checking pulse? Are they looking at the patient's face? Are they seeing that, hey, this person's, they don't look right. Their color's not right. Check these pulses, see if they're equal on both sides.
Right.
There are certain things chiropractors should be checking and doing on a regular basis to make sure it's safe. Anyways, the patients have this is in quotations, Dr. Loretti, who's a chiropractor, and I think he's the spokesperson for the American Chiropractic Association. So this is what he said. These patients have an artery that's been injured in some way, causing neck pain and headaches. Some of them go to their primary care doctor. Some of them go to their chiropractor. If the patient has a stroke following a visit to the chiropractor gets blamed. When a patient goes to a chiropractor for neck pain, Dr. Loretti added, the practitioner must do a thorough examination to rule out any red flags before performing a neck manipulation. The risk of complications from chiropractic treatment of other parts of the spine is extremely low, and some research suggests that the practice is as beneficial as home exercise, physical therapy, and medication. As a result, many orthopedic surgeons and neurosurgeons, including Dr. Grunch and Dr. Hillebrand, will occasionally refer patients to chiropractors for issues that aren't related to the neck. So the two that were criticizing chiropractic are the ones that are still referring patients. They just don't refer neck problems. I think this is Dr. Grunch, the neurosurgeon, Betsy Grunch. She said, I think incorporating chiropractic treatment as a part of a conservative treatment plan is totally appropriate. Dr. Hillebrand agreed. I won't hesitate to send a patient to someone who I know, he said. Many of these people provide very good care. So what should you do with neck pain? The article says, if pain persists, Dr. Hillebrand said, you might want to consider alternative therapies like acupuncture or massage technique known as myofascial release. You could even pay a visit to the chiropractor for gentler manual therapy or traction, which involves less aggressive, more controlled stretches or movements. Which, I respect that. They said you could still go to a chiropractor, just don't get the big, where they twist your head off and yank it off of your body, which I'm against also. Don't get that. So let me give you my take on all of this. 26, we looked this up. It was from the National Institute of Health, and it's published in the National Library of Medicine. And they said in the history of chiropractic, from start to finish, chiropractic started in 1895. So it is now 128 years old. So
now this one was done in 2010.
Okay.
So we have it was a few years ago.
Okay. So in 115 years of chiropractic history, 26 people have lost their lives because of chiropractic. So what else do we do for pain in our neck? We take over-the-counter anti-inflammatories.
We do.
Also known as NSAIDs, which stands for non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And I have another article right here. Mortality reported with NSAID use is generally linked to NSAID-associated GI bleeding, and the reported incidence is quite variable. Much of the literature reports 16,500 deaths annually as a result of NSAID-induced GI bleeding.
Okay, 16,000 annually.
So every year, 16,500 people lose their lives because they took an over-the-counter painkiller. But in the history of chiropractic, only 26 people have ever lost their lives. 26 total versus 16,000 every year.
I would also like to this is one conversation I often have with individuals who are questioning the efficacy or the safety of chiropractic. Now, I'm not a chiropractor. We all know that, right? I actually grew up with chiropractic. So I've been around chiropractic since I was very, very young. But one thing I always like to point out is we all know about insurance, right? And we know about malpractice insurance. Everybody is aware of what that is. So in the case of an injury or negligence or whatever has caused an injury or, God forbid, death to a patient, all doctors have to carry malpractice insurance to help protect against those kinds of cases.
So and the malpractice insurance has to do a risk assessment.
Right.
Hey, this profession is very dangerous. A lot of people get hurt. There's a high risk of death, high risk of serious injury, and so they determine what your premium is going to be based on that risk. So, for example, a emergency room physician malpractice on average across the nation is somewhere around $35,000 a year. So the medical doctor who practices emergency medicine in an emergency room pays $35,000 a year so that they can be covered for malpractice.
And they're already in emergent situations.
Correct.
So,
But they still get sued often. Now,
correct.
a primary care doctor, on average, roughly, depends on how many cases have been against them and so on. Obviously, that varies. Like when you drive your car, if you're a 16-year-old who just got your license, you're going to have a higher car insurance payment as someone who's 40 years old, has a family, who's more careful. You know, if you drive a sports car, your insurance is higher. All of that goes into effect. But on average, the primary care doctor pays about $18,000 a year. $18,000 per year for malpractice insurance. In fact, retired medical doctors, retired primary care doctors need to carry malpractice as well. Because if they're at a party and they're drinking, let's say alcohol, and they give you a cup, say, hey, here, have a beer, and you drink that beer and you have a reaction and you get sick, you can sue that person and say, he's a medical doctor, he told me to drink it. So most retired medical doctors maintain their malpractice. A retired medical doctor pays $12,000 a year. So $1,000 a month.
Wow.
Every month. They continue to pay this until they die after retirement to maintain their malpractice.
So then let's tell everyone on average what a chiropractor's malpractice is. Now, this malpractice, there are some of the same policies,
Right.
same aggregates.
So if chiropractic's dangerous, if people die as a result of chiropractic adjustments to the neck, should not malpractice be more expensive than the primary care physician? Now, my half-brother's an OBGYN. And I know OBGYNs pay between $100,000 and $300,000 a year
Depending on where
in
they are.
malpractice insurance. Can you imagine paying $100,000 a year that you pay just to maintain coverage for malpractice? That's OBGYN. They're the highest risk profession.
Yep.
Chiropractor's malpractice is around $900 a year. So how risky is it? 26 people have died in 115 years, and I'm pretty sure not too many more after that.
Right. And you know, yes, there can be some that are unreported, but guess what? In the Tylenol or in the NSAIDs, you can do the research and see with, medical errors.
Yeah,
with,
this
there's
article
all
talked
sorts
about
of information.
liver failure as a consequence of acetaminophen.
Yeah.
Which is very common. You give it to your kids when they have a fever. I'm not going to mention brand names just because I don't want to. I don't think it's right. I don't want to blame them. They do a lot of good. A lot of people take them and nothing happens to them, but some people take it and they die. And so there's risk to everything.
Right.
I want to mention a couple more things. I've been studying chiropractic since 1997. 1997 to now, you're looking at 26 years. I've been a chiropractor for 23 years, so practicing. Now, our offices with our team of chiropractors, we adjust around 20,000 people. We deliver 20,000 adjustments per year.
It's a lot of adjustments.
We've been doing that for 17 years. So do the math. That's what, 3.5 million? I don't know, 350,000, whatever. Do the math. 17 times 20,000. And so I think it's 340,000 adjustments. Never once has there been an arterial dissection in any of our practices by any of our doctors.
Right.
Why is that? If the data says 1 in every 1,000, then there should be 340 of them already.
Right,
340 people that we would have injured, not one. Second thing I want to tell you is I've been studying chiropractic all this time. I've been practicing as a chiropractor successfully all that time. We see miracles. We see great cases. Do you think I love my children? Do you think I care about my children?
I know you do.
I have 3. Guess what? The 3 of them get their spines checked once a week, every week. Quite often they need an adjustment and they get it. Not a manipulation, but an adjustment. Mm-hmm. Very different. See, manipulation, you turn the head all the way to its end range and then you go a little further. That's not what we do. We find the one bone that's misaligned or fixated. We only move that bone. We never turn the head all the way. We never extend all the way or flex all the way. We keep the neck in a neutral position, because if you can turn your head this far and I only turn it half of that and still able to do the adjustment, then I know it's safe. And that's how we protect our patients.
Absolutely.
So if I adjust my children and in 340,000 adjustments, not a single case, then I don't know if I'm not going to say the data is wrong. I'm just telling you it doesn't apply to myself. I have friends. One of my friends, their office sees about 650 patients per week. How many is that? That's
a lot.
that's
And he's been in practice a very long time.
That's like 35,000 people a year, every year, and he's been practicing for like nearly 40 years.
Yep.
And he hasn't had a single case either. I don't know. Look at the numbers, make a decision, go to the right chiropractor. If you go to a chiropractor and they're not doing analysis, they're not testing you, they're not examining you, they say hi and they lay you down and start adjusting your spine, maybe that's not the right chiropractor. And obviously look at their reviews, look at their Google reviews, look at their Yelp reviews. You call the state board and say, has there been any claims against this chiropractor ever in the past? Yeah. That's public record. The state board will give you that information. They'll say, oh yeah, there's citation against them for this, and this. All of that is public record. You do it. Call the state board in your state and ask about that chiropractor's reputation.
And feel free to do that for all of your doctors.
Do it for all your doctors.
You should want to make sure that every doctor you go to is, number one, going to listen to you, is going to treat you with kindness and respect, is going to serve you the way you need to be served, the way you deserve to be served, and that they're safe to go to. Like, that should be our standard of care, no matter what the category of provider you're going to see. Right. So I would encourage that no matter what.
Absolutely. I think we are way over time.
I think we are too.
If you stayed with us all this time, I appreciate you tremendously. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully this was valuable to you. We're going to have great information on our next podcast. I finally want to review the one article I have that talks about toxic stuff in cosmetics. We'll bring that up, and we'll have some new articles to review with you as well. Hopefully you'll tune in for that one. Any last words?
Have an awesome week.
Have fun.
See ya.
Take care.